wrote a pastoral letter to the diocese the week before last. It's on the website if it hasn't reached you. I was trying to set the scene briefly for where I think the Church of England is at the moment in relation to living in love and faith. And my understanding is that although the living in love and faith process has come to an end, the Church of England knows that it can't turn its back on these difficult and contentious issues which we've been debating, which really need to be faced and worked through. And so there are working groups that have been given mandates to bring back to General Synod some further proposals. In terms of where we are here, I want to acknowledge that the cost of and the pain of much of this debate has particularly been borne, not only but particularly, by LGBTQIA+ people themselves, and that pain continues in the current situation of uncertainty. I hope that I've been appropriately clear about my own position and have said clearly enough that I believe that gay people should have the same opportunities as straight people to have their faithful, loving and stable relationships blessed in church, to minister as ordained people in our church, and to know that the church wants to support and celebrate the God-given love that's contained within their relationship. At the same time, I want to be really clear that I respect those who hold different views and who, in conscience, have not wanted the Church of England to take even the steps that it has in offering the prayers of love and faith. I respect that you believe the doctrine of the Church of England as you've received it, and I want you to know that you have the support and protection of your bishop to express the traditional teaching to which you hold fast. So in this debate, as Simon I think will set out in a moment, I would ask just that we come to our own contributions with a sensitive understanding that people will have a range of views, not even poles, but a spectrum of views, and to acknowledge a mutual commitment that all are welcome in our church communities and that all are safe to contribute here, and a trust that we will all speak with love, respect and kindness, listening carefully and well without interruption or comment. I've found tremendous kindness in this diocese, and I know that kindness alone doesn't mask or minimise profound differences, but the tone of our debate needs to show who we are as Christ Church. I know also that there's a long road ahead for the Church of England still on this matter, and I'll gladly continue to talk and engage and debate with all of you and more widely across the diocese about how we best continue to have this conversation.
Good morning, Synod. I shall be chairing after refreshments. I was reminded when Andrew was talking to us this morning of a quote from John Macquarie, that those who are in the shallow end shout the loudest. I'm here this morning to give an update on living in love and faith. Friends, I hope you will forgive me for saying that you must have been living on another planet if you didn't know by now what has happened. I stand before you this morning not as an expert on LLF, but as the initial advocate for the LLF resources, which I wholeheartedly believed in and hoped that many of our parishioners across the diocese would use and would explore questions around identity, sexuality, relationships and marriage, and how these fit within the bigger picture of the good news of Jesus Christ. The resources that were designed and produced in 2020 were to enable the whole church to embark on a journey together, exploring these questions in more depth, learning about each other, about God and about our calling as a church. Part of the resources was a 5-week course with videos, real-life stories. And for those who completed the LLF course, there was an opportunity to feed back their learning. There were many focus groups set up around the country to help with this learning process too. And indeed, anyone could write into the National LLF team with their thoughts and or their experience. courses face-to-face, online, and was moved by the conversations that were had. This process began in our diocese in March 2021, hampered by COVID-19. Nevertheless, quite a few courses were run in the diocese, but in my opinion, not nearly enough. It was difficult to judge the reasons for this, but I believe there was a little reticence to engage with the topics that could result in painful discussion and the possibility of opening up divisions within parishes. The feedback was gathered together, and the response to this journey of learning together about these questions and our continuing life together as church communities and as a national church resulted in an apology from the House of Bishops for the failure to welcome LGBTQIA+ people into the church, committing itself to address this lack of welcome and inclusion. And in February 2023, part of the response of the House of Bishops was to commend a further suite of resources and prayers called the Prayers of Love and Faith. And these were approved in December 2023, along with pastoral guidance about their use in public regular worship. However, churches are not allowed to offer bespoke or standalone services that look like wedding services. And at the moment, those who have entered into a same-sex civil marriage cannot be ordained in the Church of England. And those who are already ordained could face disciplinary processes if they were to enter into a same-sex civil marriage, and they are unlikely to be able to take up new roles elsewhere. Where we are at the moment is not a place that I personally expected us to be. And although the LLF project itself is being wound up, as Joanne says, the work continues. Working groups have been set up with mandates to bring back to General Synod some further proposals. So the church, the national church, is definitely not turning its back on the difficulties that still need to be faced. And we do need to acknowledge the pain that has been felt over these past 10 years in our church by those who hold varying views about what it means to be a member of this wonderful institution that we call the church, whatever our sexual orientation or identity may be. The motion we received from Claire Deanery for today's meeting expressed a disappointment that as a diocese we have not engaged enough with LLF. Looking back over the agendas of Synod from March 2021 to June last year, it was on the agenda 7 times. I believe that we were quite good as a diocese at the learning, listening and discerning stages, but our engagement levelled off at the deciding phase. And given the lack of clarity around where we were heading, other topics taking time at synods, explains why there are some who feel we could have been more proactive, in particular because of the decisions that have now been reached. The Diocesan Synod Agenda Planning Group always considered if and what we could discuss around LLF at each planning meeting. And when preparing for the October Synod last year, we still did not have the final decision of the House of Bishops to enable a full discussion to take place here. So we were caught between a rock and a hard place. Feedback from other dioceses showed that some found the discussion helpful, but many reported that the debate only served to reinforce existing views, and the presentations that have been received did not always run smoothly. So we decided to have some time this morning to allow discussion and to debate the motion that we received, and to acknowledge the pain and the hurt that these conversations have caused over these past 10 years and probably even longer. But I also would like to commend to Synod today Bishop Joanne's recent pastoral letter that she's just referenced, in which she sets out what she believes every LGBTQIA+ person should be able to expect from the Church of England in Suffolk. And I'm sure she won't mind if I conclude this presentation with the final paragraph from that letter. My prayer is that whatever our feelings now about where the Church of England is in relation to conversations about sexuality, and whatever our personal views, we can continue to build up our churches as places for everyone, founded on love.